Hi, everybody. My name is Jessica Almeida, and today we're starting off our Summer Internship Series with a legal research review. I'm going to be going through just a few strategies that I use. I want to say every day because that's how much research I do. But I do a lot of research, and these are the strategies that I employ the most that I think make the most sense in order to just be effective and efficient with your time. So my first, go-to strategy is secondary sources. I do a lot of research and a lot of different types of law, areas of law. And so secondary sources are always my go-to. If I need something that's really general, not really jurisdictional specific, I love to look at the dictionaries, the encyclopedias. The thesaurus is great. If you guys have never used words and phrases, amazing. I use a lot of practice manuals as well because I'm usually looking at something that's state specific. So here in Massachusetts, I'll use the Massachusetts practice or the MCLEs. Absolutely love those. They're easy to use. I also love the American Law Reports. If you have not used American Law Reports, I suggest you take kind of a peek. If you're looking at kind of a niche issue that you want to look over, you can look at it from a specific state, but if you're looking at it from maybe a regional or even throughout the United States, a very niche issue, American Law Reports is a really great resource. It an encyclopedia annotated where it goes into that specific issue and it tells you all of the cases that are important on that issue. It tells you all of the statutes that are important on that issue throughout all the states and federal as well. There's a federal edition of American Law Reports. If you're not state specific, but you're more subject specific, try a treatise. One of my favorite treatises is NIMR on copyright. So if anybody who has a copyright issue, I'm telling them, go to NIMR. It's the gold standard for copyright treatises. You're going to find a lot of great information there. Health law treatises, all sorts of criminal law, all sorts of different aspects of law. There's a treatise on it. It's incredible how many treatises are out there. And we have access to so many of them through Westlaw and Lexis. The last one that I would suggest is the Nutshell series. So through West Academic, their study aid subscription, we are able to get all of their nutshells. And if you're just looking at getting some foundational knowledge about a specific area of law, say health law or marijuana law, a nutshell is a great place to start. So once you have your secondary source, another strategy you want to use is to do statutory research. And when you find a statute, if there is one, because there's not always a statute that you can look at, when you're looking at a statute, some of the places you want to go are things like the notes of decision. So you want to look at those cases that are citing your statute to find out how they are applying that statute through case law. You can go into the citing references. So when you're in Westlaw and Lexis, you want to look up at those tabs. You can click on citing references. It's going to give you not only cases and regulations, but it'll give you secondary sources as well. And lastly, when you're doing statutory research, if you're doing it for a region, the entire United States, let me suggest statutory surveys. What happens is that you take an area of statutes and you can see them all over the United States. So for instance, if you were interested in looking at all of the statutes for child custody for New England, you could go into Westlaw and Lexis and look for a statutory survey. And then you would go into child custody, and then you could go to Maine, Vermont, and it will give you, it's kind of like a table, and it gives you the statutes. Okay, now let's go on to case law. So one of the methods that we apply here is the one good case method. And so the idea is that if you find that one good case, you can find more. Okay. And how do you find more good cases from your one good case? Well, you look in the head notes for the issue that you're talking about, that you're trying to discuss, and that will find you more cases. You can look in the footnotes or the table of authorities. You can go up to your citators. Once again, that's that tab at the top. And what you're going to do is you're going to go to other cases, and it's going to give you a list, and it's going to give you depth of treatment. It's going to give you those head notes so you can easily find cases that are similar. Don't forget to make sure when you have that list, go to the left-hand side, and with the limiters, you can determine what's binding and persuasive. Also, make sure that you check your signals. So in Westlaw, that is the flag system, and then in Lexis, that is, your shepherd signals. So you want to make sure that the cases are a good law. And if they're not, if they're giving you a flag or a signal that's saying caution, figuring out why that signal is there. All right. The last thing I want to talk about is keyword searching. So normally, if we were just Googling, we would just put in what we call a natural language search. We would just put in some words and hopefully we get some good results. Here in legal research, it's a little bit different. We have pre-filtering searching and post-filtering searching. I'm going to do both when I go into Lexis and Westlaw and work on my example. But pre-filtering is when we're drilling down based on the knowledge that we already have and then using our terms and connectors to find good results. Post-filtering is doing that natural language search and then using the filters on the left-hand side to limit the results. Always remember to use your Boolean operators, that's your terms and connectors. That can make a huge difference in your search. So even if you just throw quotation marks around phrases, makes an enormous difference. /5, /10 to say within 5 or 10 words of each other, it can make a huge difference in really just narrowing your searches down or your results down. The last thing I'm going to show you or talk about is the advanced search page, which I think is underutilized. I use it all the time. And on any page, once you've drilled down, you can hit that advanced search and you don't even need to know your Boolean operators because the advanced search form will help you with that. And I'm going to show you that in just a minute. All right. If you have any questions after my demonstration, feel free you can always email me at jessica.almeida@umassd.edu. I also do research consultations. Feel free to make an appointment with me. If you have a research question that's just giving you a hard time, feel free to reach out and we can come up with strategies together. If I'm not available, you can reach out to the law librarians at lawlib@umassd.edu. We also have a phone number to the information desk, and we also have a text a librarian service. All right, so I don't see any questions in chat, so I'm going to jump into Lexis and Westlaw, and I'm going to work on this specific research problem. Okay, so my example today is how long does a landlord have to keep a former tenant's abandoned property? And this is specific, I didn't put this in my question, but this is specific to Pennsylvania. So I am on the library website. I just want to also mention that at the very bottom, of course, is all of our ways to contact us, just in case you need help. I think I'm going to start in Westlaw today. Westlaw Precision. So the first one I'm going to do is I'm going to look at a secondary source. So let's see. Now, I'm going to pre-filter. In other words, I'm going to drill down into Westlaw. So this will make my search more efficient. So I'm going to go into secondary sources. I'm going to look for Pennsylvania because that is my jurisdiction. And then I'm going to do a Boolean search. And I think now you can do this a million different ways, but just for today, I'm going to do landlord within 10. So landlord within 10 words of tenant. And then I'm going to say it's in the same sentence. So slash S just means in the same sentence. It's really like slash 25. So within about 25 words of abandoned property. And notice I'm putting those quotations around abandoned property because I want to keep that together as a phrase. I'm going to hit my search button and let's see. So notice I've drilled down, I have my Boolean search, and here I am. I have two secondary sources to look at. And it looks like the first one is right on point. This one is Summary of Pennsylvania Jurisprudence, maybe. This is a treatise. And then here we have the University of Pennsylvania Law Review, obviously a law review article. So I'm going to go into this treatise and let's take a look at this. Now, as I scroll, what we're going to see is all of my keywords that I've put in my search are highlighted. So it takes me right to that section. You can also use up here, I use this original terms. I just click through the terms. Sometimes if it's a longer document and I just want to be speedy to see, is this secondary source going to help me answer my question? Sometimes I go through and I'm reading a paragraph and I go, this is not what I'm looking for. And then I have to reassess, why isn't it correct, right? And then I have to rethink my search. So we see here that prior to removing or disposing of abandoned property, the landlord must provide a written notice. So here in the footnote, here's the statute that tells us that it needs to be provided. So I'm going to open that in the next tab. But then it goes into more detail about the tenant will have 10 days from the postmark. If the tenant's a request, the landlord can retain and store the property for up to 30 days. So here we have some great information from a practitioner material about this. Now, if we want to do statutory research, we go into the statute itself, which we found from the secondary source. Remember, secondary sources always lead to a primary source, well, you hope, right? That's what makes secondary sources so helpful. So here we have the statute, and here's some of the things that we want to think about, right? So we're doing statutory research. What's the first thing we do? We look at not only reading the statute, but then we look at the notes of decision. So these are cases that specifically cite to, not only cite to the statute, but they are considered important by the Westlaw attorneys. So they have something fundamental to say about that statute, something important. So, and then they kind of put them together. So here is number one is a case that talks about the construction and application of this specific statute. So if that is something that you're interested in looking, it's part of your issue that you're trying to figure out your case, then you can click into this. And it gives a little bit of a kind of a blurb about the case. If you're specifically looking into damages, there's a case here that you can read. Or maybe your issue is about fees for storage, then here are a few other cases for you to check out. Okay. You also have, when you do statutory research, you also have your citing references. Now notice there's 5 notes of decision, but there's 7 cases. So there are other cases that have cited this statute, but are not considered notes of decision. And that's just because the Westlaw attorneys have not kind of put it into a specific category. So now there are 7 cases that you can also check out. Five from the notes of decision will be part of the 7. But here's one from just last month, right? If you find that one good case, I'm going to take a look at this one. You can employ the one good case method, in which we're going to use the Citing References tab to find additional cases that are similar to your one good case. So this is using your citators. Once this loads, you're going to see a few things that can help you when you use your one good case method. The first thing is that you can find the treatment. So this one examined the leader, Hannibik and leader case, right? Gives you the date, the type, but here's this depth, right? The more of those green bars you have, the more this case went into depth into your original case. You can also see the head notes, which will give you an understanding of what the issues in this case are. So you can take a quick peek at that as well. So when you're reading this case, you're going to your citing references, you're finding more cases. Another thing that you can do is look through these head notes. It's going to give you, you're looking for your issue, and then it will give you your key numbers, which can bring you to more cases. It also shows, 4 cases that cite this head note. So if this head note is on your issue, it's something you want to look into, you just click on this, it's going to give you those 4 cases. So once again, using that one good case to find additional cases. Now, with all the cases, you need to be careful of your signals. So I'm going to go back to my original. Let's see what the signal was for that one. So no signal for here. So you're gonna continue to look at it, make sure that it's still good law. Okay. All right. Does anybody have any questions? Feel free to put it in the chat. And if not, I'm gonna head over to Lexis and we're gonna do the same thing, but this time I'm just gonna show the advanced search form. Now, one of the things that I kind of talked about was the idea of just doing a natural language search. So I'm going to do that right now to show you the difference. So we had landlord, tenant, and abandoned property, right? So I'm not drilling down. I'm not doing a pre-filtered search. I'm just doing a natural language search. So we got no Boolean operators, nothing's happening. So notice how many results we have. Now, if you like this type of searching, there's nothing wrong with it. You just need to use the left-hand side and you need to use your limiters. You might need to add some more terms. If the court we want is, or the state we want is Pennsylvania, we need to make sure that it's Pennsylvania. We need to go up here, we want to go to, say, secondary materials first, and then we'll go to our state, which is Pennsylvania. But we're still going to be over 1,000 results. So really pre-filtering using those Boolean search terms, it's extremely helpful to make sure that you're doing efficient searching. Now, if your results don't come out like you want them to, then you just try again. Open up your terms and connectors because they're too limiting. All right. The last thing I want to show everybody before I take any questions and stuff, I'm going to go back to Lexis because what I really want to do this time is I want to show you that advanced search form. I use this all the time. I think it's an underutilized tool in your toolbox. So the first thing I'm going to do is we want a secondary material. So I'm going to go to secondary materials. And let's see if I can go to Pennsylvania and then use it. So I'm drilling down, I'm pre-filtering, making sure I'm doing that. And here's that advanced search. So I'm going to click on that advanced search, and then it's going to give me this form that I can fill out. Okay. So a few things that I use that I want to show you, okay? The first is title. I love to look for, as you can see, look at all these search terms that I've already used. I love to put it in the title. So what I'm saying to the algorithm is that I want these specific words in the title alone, because I know if I can find the subtitle in a secondary source, I know I've got gold. I've found something that's really going to be helpful. Now, if I don't get anything, then I'm going down to these terms. This is going to help you with your Boolean operators, so you don't have to remember, is it slash 10? What do I do with this, that? Okay, all these terms. So I want, oh, here we go. I want landlord and I want tenant, right? So I'm going to add that. Then I want exactly this phrase. I want abandoned property. And then I'm going to add that as well. And then I'm going to click my search. And here I have 21. Now, we have 11 law reviews, we have 6 treatises and guides, and we have 4 jurisprudence. I'm going to go to a treatise because I'm interested in specifically more maybe uh, subject specific or jurisdictional specific secondary sources, and that's where I know I'll find it. So here we go. Pennsylvania, real estate litigation, personal property disposal obligations set by Pennsylvania Act 129. So I'm going to click on this. So really, you can use this to go through your search terms, but you can see this is all lit up. So our search terms are everywhere in this document. And this will go into exactly, I think this is, um, so this is a practice guide through LexisNexis. I'm doing practice guides next week too. If everybody wants to come back and learn more about the practice guides, they're a great resource. But this is specifically for practitioners, and it's going to go step by step through the Pennsylvania Act 129. And then it even gives, if I remember properly, it gives a section specifically about the statute. And then it tells you a little bit more about the act, like when it went into effect and that sort of thing. Now I'm going to grab this and I'm going to do, I'm just grabbing the citation because I'm going to do a quick statutory search, just so you can kind of see how it looks very similar to Westlaw. But once again, here you have your citing decisions. So if we're doing statutory research, we're looking at notes of decision. The notes of decision in Lexis are actually on the bottom. See right here on the left-hand side, if we click this, it's going to take us right to notes of decision. And then once again, now it's just the Lexis attorneys, and what are they doing? They're putting these court decisions, they're putting them into specific groups to help us, specific issues to help us. You can also go into citing decisions. So these are cases that have cited our statute. You can look at the analysis. It looks like just most of the cases have just cited the statute. You can go by court, the reported status, by date. You can see your shepherd signal right here, green is good. If we go into this case, which I also think we looked at in Westlaw, we can go to the head notes and look, it gives you recommended sources. You can shepherdize or narrow by the head notes. Once again, we're just trying to get more cases to help our argument. You can go into, let's see, other citing sources is anything that's not a case. So secondary sources, etc. So I did citators, I did signals, so you'll see the signals here. And then if you just hover over it, it tells you what the signal means. All right. I see a question in chat. I'm going to grab that. Are citing references and citators the same thing? Yes, they are. I think it's just, or sometimes people will say shepherdizing too. Shepherdizing, citing references, citators, it's all the same thing. It's just a way to find other cases. So cases that have cited your original either case or statute or regulation. If you have any questions, throw them in the chat. But if not, that is what I have for everyone tonight. Like I said, I went over pretty much a semester's worth of legal research skills in 29 minutes. So I know that is a lot of information. I totally get it. So feel free. I'm gonna once again go to our website and scroll down so that you can see our contact information. Feel free to reach out to me. The librarian or any of the librarians, we're here all summer long to help you with any of legal research conundrums that you have. So, like I said, feel free to reach out if you have any questions.